Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with the latest on your Cleveland Browns and sort of the in-between zone after free agency and before the draft. But there's still some fun topics out there to discuss with all of you watching. Now, a quick schedule alert for us here at the channel. No live show tomorrow, unfortunately. I've got to jet off tonight for a wedding this weekend, so unable to do a live show. So we'll see everyone next Thursday when we return. But let's jump into the latest on the Brownies. The first story on today's show are the Browns getting an alternate helmet. I'm going to give it one Bernie head in terms of it actually happening, but deep down, I want to give it four Bernie heads for I hope this happens. So David Njoku took to Instagram and posted a picture of some pretty awesome potential uniform combination right there with the throwback white jerseys, right, and a alternate white helmet with a brown and orange stripe over the top. Sign me up. Like, I don't care what we have to do. I don't care what kind of treaty we have to make. Sign me up for these jerseys right here. Let me paint a picture in your head. Because if you're not on board with it, I think I might be able to persuade you because I've seen some mixed responses for this. Thanksgiving night, Browns-Ravens, the NBC game. Cleveland wears those uniforms you just saw. Baltimore is wearing their all blacks. That would be the greatest uniform combination in NFL history. Am I wrong? Can anyone think of a better uniform combination, a better uniform game if the Browns are wearing a whiteout like that and the Ravens have a blackout? I mean, that is some medieval times level color scheme right there. So I am all for an alternate helmet. This does not replace the current helmet. You just get to sprinkle it in once, maybe twice a season. But what say you? Do you like these helmets that David Njoku posted? Give me a yes or no. I am definitely giving it a hard yes down in the comment section. Moving on to our second story today, and maybe the big one, maybe the reason why you clicked on to today's video. Are the Browns moving back into round two? I'm going to give it two Bernie heads, actually, which I think 2 weeks ago, Matthew would have, wholeheartedly disagreed with. But now I'm not saying there's smoke, but there's some embers, right? We're starting to see a spark a little bit. There's been some talk, there's been some chatter about the Browns trading back into round two. So Bleacher Report put out an article with 3 trade ideas for the Browns to move back into the second round. Now, Jalen Hyatt is visiting the Browns this week, and Jalen Hyatt is a second-round player, maybe even a late first-round guy. So the Browns at 74, they know he's not going to be there. So why waste a visit on him? Well, maybe Jimmy Haslam just wants to hang out with his Tennessee Vol. Or maybe Jimmy Haslam told Andrew Berry, bring him for a visit, use one of your 30 pre-draft visits. You will fall in love with him like I did last season in Knoxville, and you will decide this is someone we have to trade up and get. Now, what ammunition do the Browns have to pull off a trade to move up? They've got 2/3, they got 2/4, and they have 2/5. If they wanted to get into the second round, they could do it, right? They could either bundle both of their thirds, they can go a third, a fourth, and a fifth. I mean, there's a trade-up calculator out there that says if you take the Browns pick 74 and pick 98, it gets you in the neighborhood of pick 55. It's not an actual science because it really varies from draft to draft. Some drafts are better than other drafts, right? So some GMs view a draft as an opportunity or a draft class better than a previous one and one they want to move up for. Other drafts, and I think this applies to this draft more, where GMs would like to move back, but no one's offering what it's worth to move back a couple of spots. So if we go back in time, if we're looking for an actual data point to say, what would it cost to get to pick 44-ish, right around where the Browns were before the Elijah Moore trade? Well, we just kind of got to use what the Browns did last year and reverse it, right? Houston gave up a third and 2/4 to get to pick 44. So the Browns could take one of their thirds and 2/4 and get to around pick 44, which leads us to this, the first Bleacher Report trade idea. I don't think it's enough, right? We just saw last year it cost Houston a third and 2/4 to get to 44. Now, here's Bleacher Report saying a third, a fourth, and a fifth gets you 5 spots earlier at pick 39. But if this trade were to happen, who would I want Andrew Berry to select at 39? I would go with Jalen Hyatt. Do the Browns need a wide receiver for 2023? Not necessarily, right? There's only so many snaps to go around, and the room is starting to get a little full, right? With Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marquise Goodwin, and Elijah Moore. But Cooper might not be around for much longer. Goodwin signed a 1-year contract. So that sort of leaves you with 2 young wide receivers for the foreseeable future-ish. Insert Jalen Hyatt, who at pick 39 might just be the best player available, and that would be a nice long-term pick so that you're not constantly looking to reshuffle the wide receiver room, but you're thinking a couple steps ahead. And he was also awesome last year for Tennessee, 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. So we're going to look at the other Bleacher Report trade ideas in just a brief moment. But I sit right next to our Eagles guy here at Chat Sports, Chase Sr., and he was sort of walking around, big chest, big you-know-what in the locker room, talking about picking up nearly 50 subscribers from their video yesterday. And I want to be that guy tomorrow, right? So help me do that. Hit that sub button if you have not already. And let's show it to Eagles now what the dog pound is all about. Moving on to the second trade idea from Bleacher Report. This one involves a move with the Motor City. The Browns get up to pick 48 in exchange for a 3rd and a 4th round pick. Still don't think that would be enough, but Bleacher Report thinks it won't cost that much to move up in this draft. So who would I go with at pick 48? I've seen some people comment this name before, so I wanted to talk about the Iowa linebacker Jack Campbell. The Dick Butkus Award winner. He is one of the best linebackers in this draft class and was absolutely one of the best in all of college football last season. 125 tackles a season ago, but in his career in Iowa City, 12 and a half tackles for loss, 5 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles. He is strictly an inside linebacker, an off-ball backer who's going to play the job like it's, the 90s to early 2000s, right? He's going to have the big shoulder pads. He's going to blow up the run. He won't be a liability in coverage. He won't offer you a ton in the pass rushing department, but you will feel very confident about the middle of your defense with Campbell. He's also 6'5", an athletic freak. And I know that people love to toss around the term athleticism very loosely during the draft. Everyone's athletic. Jack Campbell really is, though. He ranked number 1 in terms of athleticism at the Combine amongst all linebackers. So I'd have no issue with the Browns landing a linebacker like Campbell, knowing that you have 3 starters this year, 2 of which are on 1-year contracts, CeCe Walker and Sione Takitaki. But be the GM for me. Who should the Browns trade up for? Is it Jalen Hyatt? Is it Jack Campbell? Is it someone else? Give me the name of a guy that you want to see the Browns, if they decide to move up, draft. Our third trade idea from Bleacher Report involves the Browns going to pick 58 for a 3rd and a 4th. Now, this one seems a bit more realistic than the previous 2. Now, at pick 58, if the Browns were on the clock at the spot, I'd go with Keanu Benton, right? The defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, 36 tackles, 10 tackles for loss last season for the Badgers, 4.5 sacks. A very productive player for Wisconsin over 4 seasons in Madison. 39 career games played, 81 tackles at Camp Randall, 19 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, and 4 pass breakups. This is full-on draft best player available. If the Browns are moving up into round 2, I think it's because they're looking at what they have in front of them, and that is a pretty set roster after free agency. I don't know if they have 8 open spots for their 53-man roster. So if they don't think they do, well, maybe they say, to hell with quantity, let's get quality. Let's take 8 good picks and get 5 great picks. And I don't hate that logic. The only pushback I have is I'd rather see them get more picks for next year's draft because, as I've long stated here on the channel, the Browns next year are going to be a lot more reliant on the draft to fill out their roster than they were this year. And next year, they've got a 2nd and a 4th through the first 4 rounds. I'd rather see them add a 3rd or something like that. Now, before we get to the rest of today's video, you know what's coming next here. The draft hats for your Cleveland Browns are out there, but do not miss out on the short-term deal because they will be wiped away, and then you won't be able to wear the same hat that Browns draftees like Jalen Hyatt or Jack Campbell are wearing. So use our link, chatsports.com/Browns hat. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Our third segment on today's show are the Browns drafting a quarterback. Look at this. We have a nice little 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give it 3 Bernie heads, actually. I think this should be true for pretty much all 32 NFL teams. But not once, but twice now, we have heard the Browns are looking at a quarterback. So Ryan Fowler from the Draft Network tweeted out, the Browns are hosting UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, on a visit today per source. And then not long ago, we had Ian Rappaport tweet out that Houston quarterback Clayton Tune will be visiting the Browns. So you only get 30 pre-draft visits. You might visit with 30 guys and draft at most 1 or 2 of them. But you usually don't waste a top 30 visit on someone you don't have interest in if they're on the board when you're on the clock. So to focus in on DTR Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the UCLA Bruins last year, the guy was just a big play machine. Like, the stats might not look like someone who you'd like to see as your starting NFL quarterback, 3,100 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. But if you were like me and you were betting on Pac-12 After Dark, you knew that the UCLA over was a pretty safe bet thanks to him. And Sam Brown, our degenerate gambler here, gives me the thumbs up because he just had a knack for extending plays. And I'm not going to say he is like a certain guy for Kansas City because he's definitely not and no one is. But I'm talking about his ability to improvise and just be an athletic freak. And I use that term again because he really fits that mold. He's hurdling linebackers. He's throwing dots down the field. Does he need to have some sandpaper applied to his game? Sure, but that's what quarterback coaches are for. Now, the Browns quarterback depth chart right now, you've got, no doubt, Watson as QB1, but this is not, even about Watson. This is about the backup moving forward. You signed Josh Dobbs to be the backup this season. I'm guessing Kellen Mond and whoever they draft is going to compete for the practice squad position. So that if, God forbid, anything happens and you end up like the 49ers of last season, you feel a little bit confident about your backup QB or your third string in this case, and you feel like the show can go on. With 8 picks in this draft, at least as of right now, I expect the Browns to draft a quarterback in day 3 or sign one afterwards, a UDFA, and have him and Kellen Mond compete to be the third string backup quarterback, ride the practice squad, and hopefully you never need to use them. But if you do, well, you can be a good Boy Scout and you rather be prepared, right? Have it but not need it rather than need it and not have it. That is it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, feel free to share it to Twitter. I know Joshua Miller always does a great job of doing that. So get a shout out by sharing today's video on Twitter and tagging me at Matthew Petey.